Jayne! Cats.
Yeah, that's the downside. We've got 3 of them.
Nice. What a beautiful cat.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
When I got into newspapers, that's when the passion really developed for photography. And I can't say that it was singularly the photography so much as the whole situation. So, you know, it became so exciting to be involved in frontline news. And so the satisfaction of being involved in that, having inside information on what was going on, seeing your picture then in the paper the next day, that became a real driving force.
Real rush.
It's really, yeah. It's something, and something that you never get over. If you've got that, you never get over it.
Oh,
you
wow.
always have it for life.
So this one is, now I can sort of anchor it a little bit better because I recognize the building type. So it looks like it's in, say Kowloon side of Hong Kong. And there, what looks like, ooh, that's a good one. Okay. So on the right of the, so the scene in the background is, okay, it's a black and white photo. It's the buildings, sort of intense, sort of, older style buildings. So a lot of windows that are broken up into small squares. Though it looks like either really early in the morning or Sunday when everything's shuttered. On the ground, there's that same look right thing, painted on the actual ground. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people standing. So you're making a portrait of 7 people. The groups are separated. Like, on the left, there's like what looks like a grandmother, a mother holding up her daughter, and then I guess the husband, maybe, it could be a brother. And then on the right, you have a man holding up his daughter with, like, I'm assuming, his spouse. Yeah, I can guess what the story is because of what the faces look like. Some look Chinese, some look South Asian. But what is the story of this photo?
This is Hong Kong,
yeah.
Quite rightly, and yes, in Kowloon side, so round Yamate. And the story was about Edward Snowden, after Edward Snowden left.
Wow.
So these people are refugees. And at the end of the Edward Snowden incident, you know, he released all his story through The Guardian. He was sitting in the Mirror Hotel. And then once that story dropped, then the whole city is alive with trying to find him.
Right.
And everyone's assuming that he's 5-starring it somewhere, he's in a luxury accommodation somewhere. So people are looking at the most bizarre places, like the boat owned by the Icelandic honorary consul in the harbour down in Aberdeen, I think it was. Private locations.
Right.
Private consular locations. Just no one had any idea.
Yeah.
No one had any idea. But what had happened is his barrister had thought, how can we work this? So he went to the UNHCR to register Edward Snowden as a refugee.
Right.
So he thought also, then what's the next step? How could he completely disappear where no one would find him? And that is to be placed with refugees. Okay. So he took Edward Snowden and took him up to Sham Shui Po to one of this particular barrister was looking after several families and their appeals as to whether they were allowed to stay in Hong Kong or not. So he took him and placed him with one of the refugee families.
Wow. And
literally they moved out of their it was a family. It was the family on the right. Mm-hmm. They also now have a younger son since Edward Snowden came to stay. And they were in a 1-bedroom, like it's a single bed.
Yeah, those tiny places.
Super tiny place. They moved out of that 1-bedroom and they then lived in the kind of kitchenette thing in the hallway while Edward Snowden took their bedroom and then they went out and got newspapers for him. They got all the electronic equipment that he needed, like he basically made a list, and then they went out and got all the wireless communication and everything for Edward to stay in communication. But then the barrister was concerned that at some point something might leak out.
Sure.
Why is this? Why are they buying this equipment? Everyone's watching everyone's business in these tight, communal kind of accommodations in Shamshir-Po. So they decided that they'd move on. Mm-hmm. So they moved on to Ajit's house.
Okay.
And Ajit is an ex-soldier, a Sri Lankan soldier.
Okay.
So they felt that actually they'd leave him with Ajit, because if they had if they had to then have problems with moving around, then Ajit was by himself, and would be able to probably help more. Yeah. So, and it was also, it was still Ajit's still in a one single bed accommodation, but for two of them to be in there, it was much easier.
Wow.
So, and then the rest of the picture is, Vanessa also partially lived in with this other couple, kind of in the subdivided section. It's all right on top of each other. And that was Vanessa's mother that was also here, but she's gone back to the Philippines.
So Vanessa
has now, with her daughter Kiana, has been given asylum in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's gone already.
Okay. Wow.
The rest of them are still here. The rest of them were all at the point of being ready to go. Right. At that last stage of acceptance to Canada, right at the beginning of COVID.
Right. Okay.
And that just shut down everything.
Sure.
Shut down. It shut down communications back to Sri Lanka, where they need to get paperwork from. Yeah. It shut down the operations of the government departments here, and so they're in a bit of a limbo now. They're still waiting.
So, as a working photojournalist in COVID, are you traveling at all, or?
No, not at all.
So you've just been in Hong Kong for how long?
The last trip I had was March last year.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, which is unusual because, normally, for me, based here, I'm not just... Because when I came to Hong Kong, it was clear that I needed either 2 or 3 languages to be working necessarily in the local media. Yeah. So the only media work I eventually did when I got here was for overseas. So I worked for agencies overseas. Okay. But the location and the type of news that was coming out of Hong Kong would mean that actually there wasn't that much going on for foreign agencies. You would be talking about celebrities and sports being the things that they'd want. And then we started going into protests, and then it becomes a different story altogether. Sure. They can't get enough people on the ground for the amount of work that was happening then. But for that interim period, I kind of started to go into events. I started to go into celebrity things and sports. Okay. And so once you start going into that, then you're moving around all over the place. Right. So I would go to China, to Japan, to Singapore, to anywhere, Macau and southern China, particularly. So in the year just before COVID, in that final year, I did the World Cup basketball in China. I did the World Cup rugby in Japan. Oh wow! Which is just fabulous because you're away for 3 weeks at a time and traveling around. And I always have, from the moment I started, always, when I've been traveling for work, make the time to see where I am. So I'm not just going there to do the job. Right. Always go and see where I am. For sure. Whether it means you're definitely missing out on sleep, just go and see it. Yeah. Because you don't know if you're going to be able to go back and see it, and it's just such a fabulous opportunity. So Japan was just brilliant for the rugby. Which is
a sentence I wouldn't have expected to hear. If you're listening and you're hearing little feet, it's because one of your beautiful cats, what's his name?
That's Padme.
Padme. Okay, Padme. Heard him. Yeah. Very nice. Just hopping around, doing everything. Awesome. So, on my laptop, I can see I don't think we have time to cover 2 more images, but one image is a blue sky. They're basically 1.5 centimeters. So I'm looking at it from far away. And one of them, it looks like a green ground. Of the 2, which should we pick, or should we just pick randomly? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
The green one is rugby, and
so that perfect segue. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.